excited to have us both here today. This feels so good. It has been way too long to be able to not have you across the table, but I'm excited to be here with you. So
I'm
this is
excited.
so
I know it's been a while.
it has been. It has been. So I think we need to share with others that are new to our little circle because I was doing research because I'm a nerd. I'll just open that with I'm a nerd. And I did research recently that only about 1% of the population is within the military. And we fall in the 1% population. So I feel like we should do a little like, hey, hello, and welcome. Who are we? Why do we want to be here and listening to us? And give a little background. But will you start off? Because I mean, you've got more experience than I do. So fill us in on your track record and fun.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess introduction first off, I'm Ashley. And gosh, I don't even know, I guess where to start. Okay, so me and my husband, he's in the military. He is a US Special Forces Green Beret. He is going to be retiring next year. So I have 20 years almost experience in the military. And gosh, I I don't even know. There's so much to, break down, in a way, but I just figured that this would be a good avenue to just kind of let people or let other military spouses that are coming in or just have a, internal perspective of my experience, my brain of what, we lived through with what we went through. And um, yeah, so
I think the fun part is it's going to be what we've gone through, but what we go through. It's past and
yeah.
present. This isn't something that just like goes away. Yeah, we might leave the military. I come from the background of my husband was a combat engineer, and he pushed dirt for 7 years, and we got out because of medical reasoning. So he was medically released, and so even after only 7 years in, um, we've been out for seven. I think we've been out for seven, maybe something.
Has it been that long already?
It was Eli just turned 7 in June, and we got out right before him. So maybe it's almost 8 years that we've been out, but it's still a continuation. It's now dealing with the after effects of the military. So like I said, I'm Stephanie, and I am my husband Chris was a combat engineer, but he was in for 7 years, medically released after a full year-long deployment, and then we were home for a little while. But we've done duty stations. I mean, we joke around all the time, and this one is fun. We moved 7 times in 6 years, so we know the idea of packing up. We've been everywhere we're originally from Chicago. We did Missouri, Colorado, we did Germany, where all of our bases. I mean, my husband did Afghanistan. So we've been a little bit all over. But I'm a mom of 4, 2 of which were military brats and 2 are not. So 2 have the fun of understanding what military life is a little bit like. They understood it. They were there when dad deployed. They were there when dad came home. They lived a lot of the transition life and all of that. But 2 of them just get to see and learn the after effects of life. So now your family has gotten a lot bigger recently, so you've got a couple extra who know. I think all of them will end up knowing military life to some capacity, right?
To some capacity, yeah. So I have 5 children, and 3 of them are biologically mine, and they range 5 years apart between them. And then we kind of plugged 2 bonus babies kind of in between each set, and they range from almost 14 to almost 3. And of course, my oldest, my 14-year-old, she's going to know this life until dad retires. And so she's had it kind of the most experience in it.
Yeah.
By the time my second baby came along, you know, we were PCSing to North Carolina from Colorado. And it was kind of like our break time. So um, my middle biological, her name's Nora. She has experienced it, but not to the extent of where dad is leaving all the time. And so, you know, my oldest was constantly like half her life, actually a little bit more, excuse me, more than half. Um, he was constantly gone and coming, going and coming, going and coming. And so she has a little bit more of that kind of knowledge and that kind of life that she lived. And then the other ones just kind of came along after. Yeah, we got stationed in Germany as well. And so they know that lifestyle of packing up and moving, but not necessarily of dad being gone all the time. But and then my two bonus babes, we're adopting a boy and a girl, and maybe that will be a whole nother episode. But you know, they kind of came into it about a year ago, and so their whole thing is this is brand new to them as well. So, you know, I'm not sure to the extent of what they're really going to grasp from the military lifestyle, but especially now that my husband is technically non-deployable.
Right.
But still, the fact that we are a military family, we do have, I mean, this is just part of who we are, you know, so they're kind of coming into this. I mean, hearing the backstories, hearing the history of just our life, you know. So, you know, we're trying to find a balance also and trying to bring them in and also kind of meet them where they are. So yeah.
Yeah. Now, were you, I don't even know this personally. Were you ever a military brat, or were you just near a military installation? And like, how did you get into this military
Yeah.
life?
So I grew up in Hawaii, and of course, Hawaii is super small. And Hawaii has a big military influence. We have, gosh, one, two, three, four, five bases on that
Okay.
tiny little island. Army, Air Force, Marine, and I think there's some not Coast Guard. There's this tiny little one. I don't know exactly if it's a joint base or not, but um, I mean, we're in the middle of the Pacific, so we're middle between continental US and then, you know, Asia. So of course, if you know your history and Midway and all that kind of stuff, you know. But anyways, so no, I didn't grow up a military brat. But I grew up around the military a lot because it was so prevalent. I grew up in a central town on Oahu called Mililani, and right near Mililani, in the next town over, was Schofield Barracks. And so, you know, we would go to church on Sundays, and our church was right outside of base. So we would have a lot of military in our church that would be coming in. And of course, then um, the church was always constantly rotating as well because, you know, then the military leaves. And so it's a constant coming and going. And so not necessarily that I was a military brat, but I definitely grew up around military a lot. They had a big influence in my life just because of going to church, and church was such a big part of my life as well. So,
So
yeah.
is that at your husband? Is that where you met Eric? Was that church?
Yeah, he was this scrawny little 18-year-old when he arrived. It was his first duty station. And he got lucky. He got stationed in Hawaii right after basic.
Station in Hawaii is your favorite first base. That's not fair, but okay.
No, gosh, no. But I guess it was fair because he got me. But no, I mean, he was there, gosh, maybe only 3 months, and then we met. So um that was back in 2006.
Okay.
And I graduated in 05, and so it was like right after, almost a year after I graduated, that I met him. And then We dated for, gosh, a long while. We dated 8 months and then he got deployed. So yeah.
Who
I
was that?
um I don't know. I just, you just kind of I just chose to kind of do it. I just, I knew that I liked this guy and then eventually I loved him.
Right.
And um and then, being in the military, this was after 9/11, very shortly after. So like deployments were a constant thing. So it was always kind of in the back of my mind that this was a possibility. And then the call came that they were leaving. And so it's like, okay, do we get married or do we not? And I didn't want to be that statistic of just getting married while they deploy, because
Yep.
they can. And so we decided not to and just decided to stick it out. And he was the first rotation that changed from 12 months deployment to a 15-month deployment. And on his mid tour for R&R, he proposed. He flew me out to Connecticut, where he's from, and he proposed. And so half of that deployment, I'm planning a wedding by myself, which probably was for the best. Um,
Right.
just judging by, we really didn't know each other extremely well, but so and honestly, he really didn't care what the wedding was like. We wanted to be together. And so yeah, he came home and I think a month later we were married.
I love that. I love that. We were
So
not. I
I
knew
was
what I
gonna
was.
say, I don't think I know your and Chris's story.
So we actually met, we worked together. And I thought he was a total jerk when I first met him. I will not even lie. And he owns it. He was a jerk. I didn't want to talk to him at work for the first like 2 or 3 weeks. He was the new kid and I was the like experienced kind of kid at work. And we worked at the hospital and we worked together. And I told my supervisor for 2 weeks straight, I was like, if you put me near this kid, he will not make it out of this hospital alive. Like, I wholeheartedly thought this kid and I were going to just duke it out in the middle of a room or something. And so I avoided him largely for about 2 weeks. And then one week I couldn't avoid him. Like week 3 came around and I just couldn't avoid him any longer. They had him on the same shift as me and the same places. And it was a really small quarters that we kind of had. And so I had to be around him. And I learned that he wasn't the jerk that I thought he was. He was actually quite cute, very sweet. Chivalry was not dead on my husband. And he asked me out on a date and I said, sure. I don't know why I was like scared to go on a date with him for the first time ever. And he asked me for a kiss in the parking lot. After the date, we had left and he asked me for a kiss and I laughed at him. I felt really bad afterwards because I laughed at him. But I laughed because I wasn't serious. I thought he was like joking. And he was like, no, I'm serious. Like, I don't expect you to say yes. Like, this is your space and it's all up to you. Like, can I have a kiss? And I was like, yes. Like, what? Like, I was totally taken aback by it. And from that point on, I knew that if he had enough courage to stand up and be as big of a jerk as he was at the beginning, and yet still ask me for a kiss, he could handle my attitude, which is big sometimes, and yet be sweet enough and loving enough to love me, truly love me in all the guts and glory of it. So I kind of fell for him pretty quickly. And we started dating really shortly after that. And we are not the practical, like, I mean, I would encourage my children to follow our example a little bit, but we started dating, I would say like a week or two into dating. He practically lived at my house. So I had my own house. I was living with my cousin. We were renting a house together and he would just come over and never leave. And he's never left since. So we just kind of, stuck through it. But he had always wanted, growing up, had that like military mindset. And he had told his family from the beginning that like, I will join a military force at one point in time in my life. He was actually working as a referee for hockey and was high up, knew a lot of people. And we had gotten engaged. So we actually knew we wanted to be married. We got engaged. I got pregnant shortly after the engagement. And I had explained to him, like, it's not wedding planning jitters. It is legitimate. I am pregnant. And he goes, well, I need to be able to provide for my child and my wife and this family that we've created. What do you think about me joining the military? And I was like, what? Like, sure. I mean, I'll stand here and support you to whatever that means. You know, if that's what you choose and that's what you want, like, I don't want to be the reason you joined, but if you that, I will stand next to you and support you. And he was like, no, I've always wanted this for my life. Like, I've always said, yes, I want the military at some point in time. It's a guaranteed paycheck. It's benefits for you and the baby, and we will be taken care of, and I will provide for you guys. And we go into the recruiter's office, which I think is hysterical. And he had already told them, like, I want to sign, I'm in for this, like, join the Army. We were talking jobs at this one meeting, and the recruiter's like, so you want to join too? And I was like, absolutely not. Do you not see the extremity that is currently growing out of my body? Like, I have a child. Like, no, not now, but after, when you're done. And I was like, no thanks. One in the family is enough. That's plenty. Thank you though. And every week when we would go, they had like I don't even know, like a training for all the newbies before they fully went in. So they would do like workouts and stuff like that with them. I would go to the meetings and I'd hang out. You know, I'd be the very largely pregnant woman there. And they continued to try and recruit me. And I was like, you guys have some really good, like, you don't take no for an answer.
They're tenacious, aren't they?
I mean, no is not an option for them. And so he was supposed to leave. So we tried to look at jobs that were going to be like transferable to like everyday life afterwards. And he wanted to do construction. He knew that would be like easily transferable, give him great life skills, not high chances, or like if he were to deploy, it wouldn't be into like super scary things, to calm my heart a little. And so we were like, yeah, that's fine. He'll be a dirt pusher. That's cool. I'll go with it. And he signs up and they tell him, you won't be leaving until after Thanksgiving, closer towards like probably Christmas for AIT and basic. And I was like, cool. So we'll plan our wedding for before you leave and we'll do it for Thanksgiving.
When did you sign up? What time frame of the year was this?
We got engaged in May. And he signed up probably June, July. And so they were telling us closer to Christmas, would be when he would be leaving, you know, December timeframe would be when he would leave for basic and AIT. So I had planned an entire wedding. I mean, like, got the dress, the ceremony, the reception. I had all the decorations. I had all this stuff. Everything was planned. And then per the military, we got orders that he would be leaving November 3rd. We had our wedding planned for the weekend after Thanksgiving.
Oh,
and
no.
we didn't get to do our wedding. I had to now call all the places and cancel everything. And we shotgunned a courthouse wedding. I was 6.5 months pregnant. I wore a black and teal dress. And we were in the courthouse and it was pouring rain. And I was slightly devastated, but yet it was one of the greatest moments ever because I told him I was willing to be a statistic. If we weren't deploying, he was just going to basic and AIT. Yeah. But I told him, I was like, I will not have this baby and not carry the same last name. Mm-hmm. I won't do that. That's not how I roll. We were planning on getting married anyways. Looks like we're just moving this up a little. And he agreed with me completely. He said, no, I will not leave without you being the person that gets all my contact information and like I want to start out with you as my point of contact. I
Yeah.
want her. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So we did a courthouse wedding, October 30th. My mom was devastated that it wasn't on Halloween, but it was fun. It poured, it rained, it was nasty. And yet I said it was one of the greatest omens ever, to have rain on your wedding day. So I will always encourage rain on a
Is
wedding
it?
day.
That is a, if you're superstitious, that is a superstition though, for good
It is.
luck. Yeah.
It is. And it was funny because I was so pregnant, but you couldn't tell in certain directions. So if I stood the right way, I just looked like I wasn't pregnant at all. I looked great. And then I would turn profile and you would just see this very large belly, and everybody just thought it was hysterical. So I got married to him, and 3 days later he left for basic and AIT.
Wow. And then you met. So where was basic and AIT for him?
Missouri. He was Fort Leonard Wood.
Okay.
So he went down to Missouri. I would go down and see him on the weekends if I could. Through basic, I couldn't. So we wrote letters every day. Welcome to dating myself in the old school time frames. They weren't allowed to have phones. He wasn't allowed visitation through basic. So I lived 8 hours. So from post to my front door was 8 hours. And I couldn't go see him. So we wrote letters, like snail mail letters every day. We still have the letters. I thought we lost them in one of the million moves. And recently I found them and brought me to tears just to see that he had kept not only mine, but he kept his.
Oh,
And we have a plan to put them in a book somehow. I don't know how to do this, but I want to put it in a book, and turn our letters into a book, of memories. But he got through basic, and then I had Abigail while he was in AIT. And he had the opportunity. He was told, you can either go home for 3 days, because that was like the short leave that they had. You can go home for 3 days, or you can take paternity leave, get 2 weeks off, and restart all of it all over again. And I was like, you are not restarting. You will come home. I'll see you for 3 days and you can go right on back.
yeah, right.
So while he was in AIT, I would drive 8 hours with a baby, and I would either have a friend drive with me so that I could sit in the back seat, and she was nursing at the time. So I would nurse throughout the ride, and then my friend would drive, or I would just drive by myself, and I'd have to, the 8 hour trip just took a lot longer than normal.
Yeah.
But we'd go spend a day with him. I'd sneak him out of post, a little late now, but I would sneak him out, and we'd go spend an evening just in a hotel right outside of base, and then we'd turn around and drop him back off the next morning, and I'd go back home.
Yeah. Wow.
Welcome to our lives. There's children all over.
All the time.
Yes, all the time.
If it's not even my children, I have my kids' friends over all the time.
Revolving doors, but I think I've always said I wanted that as a parent. I wanted my house to be the house that was like the house that was always open.
Yeah.
And it's funny how with the military, it became the house that was always open. Yeah. I've hosted many a Thanksgiving that were like 40, 50 people because our house is open.
Yeah, because we understand not having like family around, so you kind of get your own family.
Your family doesn't just mean the blood family that you're related to and born into. It very much so means it's who you make family. I remember our guys deployed. We'll talk about this on another episode, but they deployed right before Thanksgiving, and then they came home right before Thanksgiving. So they did a year-long deployment, Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And because they were so close to the two holidays and deploying, you couldn't take block leave. So I told all of Chris's soldiers before I think it was once they got home before they left. I told them, I go, if I hear any one of you was in the DFAC for Thanksgiving dinner, I will personally show up the next morning and smoke you. And they were like, okay. So we had a 2-bedroom apartment and it was crowded with a bunch
It's
of single
packed.
mothers.
Yeah. That's the best though, honestly. That's the best.
So if it wasn't soldiers that are always coming through the door, it's now kids that are coming through the door. You're like,
Yes.
this house, here's the pantry, just open it on up.
Yep. Yep. I know we have kind of adopted another friend, a little girl in the neighborhood, and she's always over. I'm like, so I'm assuming you're staying for dinner. I'm like, and she's like, yep. I'm like, okay, that's fine. You know,
You just
but
started your hair.
but what so so how we met though,
Yes, is very different.
very different than the military,
Yeah,
which I appreciate. And I like our story.
I do. I love our story. We started as clients. I was a client of yours. You had a photography business,
Yeah.
and I started as a client, and you swore to me that you would never become friends with a client. And I still hold that to you all the time. I'm like, oh, we don't become friends with clients, huh?
I don't know. It was meant to be.
It was.
It
It
was meant
was.
to be. Yeah, it was right when I was starting out because I was offering like those really like cheap sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were modeling. You were actually asking for couples to model for you.
Yes.
And that's how we originally met, was because I saw your post and I commented on it that Chris and I would be in for it.
Yeah.
And ever since that first shoot, I was like, oh, I'll just call Ashley back up to do more photos. And it was
Yes.
it was his birthday, it was boudoir shoot, it was a couple session. I mean, we were doing like anything and everything that.
Yeah, I had you model you had a wedding dress. Remember that? That one we went down. You modeled in your wedding dress. I don't know if it was yours.
No, it wasn't mine. That was a thrift store buy.
Yeah, because that one was white, not teal and black. But yes, it was beautiful. I remember that one too. But yeah, constantly like rotating sessions with you for sure.
Yeah.
And then over time, a friendship just developed.
It did. It did. It started as, yes, very much so as client based. And I would call you for this. I would call you for that. We do different photos. I swore I saw you more than I did like half of my friends, and definitely more than family. And we were, and the kids would be around for a lot of the sessions. Like I felt like the kids would just be like, because we had kids and we couldn't guarantee babysitters, I was always like, bring them with. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. And we did one session at your house and it was super fun. Cold, but fun. And
the one in the snow.
yeah. And we were worried about construction workers and stuff. I mean,
Yes.
you and I have some crazy stories of the things that we
Yeah.
did.
And you're right. I always had Olivia, my oldest, trucking along with me. I mean, that's just how it was. My husband was gone, and this was like my business hobby type thing to keep me busy. And I couldn't afford a babysitter because I wasn't making enough to pay a babysitter. So she just came along with me on all of my sessions, all of
Yeah.
my clients.
And I mean, I think I brought, Abby was around and Jackson was around. So I had my older two around occasionally, or I would just be like, stand here and we do the shoot over on this section. And
Yes.
we just keep kids out of the photos, but
Yep.
they entertain each other. And so it was cool because I think the reason you told me that you didn't become friends with clients was I was asking if you wanted to get the kids together one day. Or something. It was about the kids. And you're like, I usually don't like become friends with clients. And I was like, that's fine. I totally understand. And
Doesn't sound like me. Not anymore.
not anymore. But it was just one of those, like, I think I resonated with the fact, like, you're a military spouse, you've got kids with you, you understand the lifestyle, and we're just understanding that, you know what, I still want to do this. I still want to participate. It's just that I come with extras.
Yeah.
A lot of like, and so it was nice to have that friend that understood the chaos that I might be going through, especially in the times of, it was post deployment. So I was struggling myself to kind of find my balance, to figure out how do I maneuver this life now.
Right.
And that on top of it of like, how do I be a good spouse and how do I care for my kids and be all the things? And he's still gone and he's home and then he's gone and then he's home and, you're far away from family. So it was nice to have the open arms of somebody else who understood, who truly get it.
I do.
So, and then it just kept going. I mean, it just kept going.
Again, it was meant to be. I mean, we are states away.
Yeah.
We are states away. And it's like, gosh, I just got to see you a few weeks ago when I was in Chicago. And it's like no time has ever passed, so.
Yeah. I mean, and even then we had times, I think, when you were in Germany where we didn't really speak, but yet it still feels like we just talked yesterday. Like,
yeah.
And that part of it is that I think that as military spouses, we understand that you've got life, and sometimes life swings you here and swings you here, and you don't have that ability, but the door is always open is one thing. And that we understand that, we get it. We get that their time doesn't pass the same for us. And so it's just different. But it's great to be able to finally connect and be together, even though we're not in the same room. Yeah. Which Chris and I are working on. I'm going to put that out to the world that we're working on getting a little closer, at least. Yes.
Well, you let me know.
I need to know when he knows. I'll let you know. Because I think I finally broke him on why because he keeps going, well, we have stuff here in Illinois to stay and I want to stay because of this, this, and this. And I'm like, but really? And I think recently he's kind of gotten to the point where he's like, I like us better where we were just us.
Yeah.
Out in our open spaces, our open land, where we could just be our family. And he's like, we need to get moving on it. And I was like, okay.
It's like one of those, like, you just like smile internally, like, yep, okay. And you just like go on with go with the flow,
And you're mentally packing everything in your head. You're like, yep, I've got this. And yes. I told you, but it's okay. You need to do it in your time, dear. I'm just here for the show.
That's right. That's right. But I'm completely excited. I'm super stoked that we get to do this together. That we actually have the opportunity to do this together. Technology for one is super awesome, but just like being in the life space that we are now, I don't even know what it is that we can even offer, but we have experience and maybe it'll help somebody. Maybe somebody would enjoy listening, but I'm just happy that I get to do this with you.
I am too. It's different because I've been approached, having another podcast, I've been approached of, would you want to do a co-host with me? And I was like, it's just not, I don't know. It just never jived as much as this does. Like, this just feels right. And you say, like, I don't know what we would bring. I want to bring a space personally. Like, I would want this just to be just like how you and I feel like the door is always open. And there's just that soul that understands us is what I want to give to other military spouses, is that I don't care what branch you're in. I don't care what rank your husband is or your what rank you might be or whatever, but I want it to be a safe space because the community that we run in is small. It's like I said, only 1% of the United States can be a part of this wonderful community. It's got its ups, it's got its downs, it's got the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, we've seen good, bad, and the ugly of the whole thing. And it doesn't matter what branch you're in. It doesn't matter what your job is, whatever, that doesn't matter. That doesn't change. It's still a small community. And so I want to if you're within the community, open up the arms and let you know that you're here and it's safe and you've got a friend and you've got more than one friend and we're here. We're here to love and support you. And if you're not in the community, I hope that we can shed some light and get others to kind of understand. Because I feel like we live in a community. Now, you live in a community that is heavily military veteran lifestyle. I live in the city of Chicago, and the city of Chicago does not understand veteran life. So being the outsider, or being that somebody could be an outsider, I hope that they can kind of be able to see inside of like, why do we tick a little differently? How to support military families a little bit differently, or understanding the life of a military spouse in one aspect, the veteran in another. And I mean, our kids are special. They're different. They understand differently. They love differently. And that's one beautiful thing. We'll talk all about that episode too, about the kids and their love, their ability to love differently. And I just want others to see inside of our world a little. It's not spoken about a lot. And so I hope we can, I think we come with very kind and open hearts to just share. I mean, together we've got almost 30 years worth of experience within the military community. I think that we can share a little bit of the inside story of both sides of it. I mean, you come from a different, you have a different job, like Eric has a different job than Chris did, and has different experiences than I do or Chris does, and you do the same. And so I think coming with that ability that we're both coming from the same military thought process, but the door is, like we've said, is always open. And so whether you're in the community or not, I hope that this is that safe space to learn more, or at least, like I was telling you before we hopped on, is just grab your drink and pull up, because we're spilling the tea inside the military life of a spouse, and just what is it like to be on this side of the world.
Yep, absolutely. And like you said, good, bad, and ugly. We're going to talk about it all.
And that's the fun part, is that I don't know if anybody's done this yet, where it's not just the pretty and the wonderful and the glamorous, and it's not just the bad, but
I started doing a little bit of research. Well, I don't know if I call it. Yeah, I guess it is a little bit of research. And I just, like, real briefly, I didn't dig too deep just yet, but on like different podcasts, because there are other military wife podcasts, military spouses. There's like young wives that have vlogs on YouTube, and seasoned wives and stuff like that. But I kind of see it focused, from what I have seen so far. It's more of a Q&A. Like, they have questions that they receive, which I'm sure hopefully we receive too. But it's like, okay, like, what I wish I knew. And it's more about the structure of the military. They wish they knew how to go through all the things to PCS and move, all those little details. Or they wish they knew about the medical part of it, like, so and that is their experience. I just want to shed some light on the deeper details of it, in a way.
Yeah.
So I haven't found anybody yet. I'm sure there is somebody out there, but we got to start breaking the silence of, like, the stigmas, and we got to start breaking the silence of the trauma, and we got to start breaking the silence of just the reality of life living in this kind of community. There was actually one gentleman I did come across that is doing it, but it's more for the men,
Okay.
and which I really appreciate, because they need that too.
Yeah.
And he's an ex-SEAL. Actually, I don't know if he's ex or not, but he's doing it too for the men's perspective. I haven't found anybody from the spouse's perspective.
Which is going to be fun. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's cool. I'm mad proud. Love to hear the fact that there's somebody out there coming from the guy's perspective.
Yes. They need
That
it.
yes, that stigma is silenced. That community is silenced heavily. And so I'm glad to hear that there's somebody out there who's willing to, talk it out, say the things that nobody else is wanting to say and is too, PC. I'll put it as they're too PC to say, like truly, like there's a lot of things that the guys don't want to share.
Mhm.
Are ashamed to share, whatever. I mean, there's so many emotions to the not wanting to share. But I think that it goes both ways. Those episodes from him will give us the light of the guy's perspective, like seeing inside of their eyes. And now we get to bring up the idea of what is it like to be on the home front? What is it like to be us? And granted, neither one of us has been a dual spouse. Like we're not military. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to hear it. We want to have the questions and we want to, because we have a whole list, like
Well,
when I tell you
maybe one day, yep, that's it.
of episodes, of concepts, of topics, of talks. You know, some will be lighthearted where we're going to talk over the funny and the good and the life and laugh and truly laugh. There's going to be other ones that, I mean, are going to be breaking stigma conversations. So they're going to be deep. They're going to be, maybe not the easiest to listen to, but they're real and reality. And that's what we come with is raw and real life. And then there's other things of just like informative and educational. And how did we get through X, Y, and Z and not lose it all together? How did we, how do we make it this? And how do we do that? And a lot of, some of it'll be how to and not, and others will just be a lot of conversation. Because there's topics that are truly dear to both of us that we want to talk about, we want to bring up, we want to shed light on. But we are open. So in the comments, leave notes, share with us. What do you want to hear? What do you want to talk about? What are things that, are you a military spouse? Are you, what branch are you from? What are, fill us in. This is the intro to us. We want to introduce ourselves to you. But we want to hear from you too. So who are you? Where are you from? Are you military? And if you are, welcome. Hi. If you're not, do you have connections to the military? Like I know that there's plenty of people that is within my family that are just related because of Chris and me, and they've got a fond heart and love for the military and support. They saw what we went through, and I know that your family does the same, where they support in a whole new level. I've met many a military mom who's like, thank you for what you do. I don't know how you do it. And you're like, not a problem. I love it. But if you're a military spouse, I want to say thanks, because we carry a big job and it's not always easy. But I want to say thank you for your service as a military spouse, Ashley, to you, but also to our listeners, that if you are a military spouse, thank you. Thank you for your service. It is not, I had somebody say that to me once when they thanked Chris for his service, and they looked at me and they were like, thank you for your service. And I was like, I didn't do anything. And they were like, but you did. And that was the first time and the only time I will ever debate somebody on whether or not we get a thank you too. Because
That's
I don't
hard.
think it's enough.
Yeah, that's hard because, this isn't, I think I've heard that one time before too, and I was kind of shocked. I didn't necessarily know how to respond. Because like you just said, like I'm not doing anything. Like I'm just married to the man.
Right.
I'm like I would have been married to him. I would like to think I'd been married to him, even if he didn't join the military. So that's that. I didn't know how to respond because in my mind it was just us.
Yeah. Because we don't see the uniform. I mean, it's a gorgeous uniform to see on. I won't deny that one, but it's the same as if you had a husband who worked corporate America that wore a suit every day. Like, we just look at it's a uniform to work. And we don't necessarily see, because we see them being the ones that go and serve and do and fight and battle. We're battling a little differently. And so I'm excited to show our side of the battle, to show our side of it all. And, but also just genuinely tell our listeners, one, thank you for supporting us, letting us have our voice, but supporting the troops, supporting our husbands in that effort. But also thank you to the spouses, the other ones out there that you've put in the battle. You've been the
battle. It's a silent battle for sure.
100%. And I want to say thanks, but I am thrilled to be able to do this with you weekly. So guys, don't worry, there will be weekly conversations on Wednesdays. Make sure you grab your drink, grab whatever you got, and come sit down as we spill some tea on the military spouse life, because this is a fun and definitely a good topic, and it's going to be open and fun. But I thank you for being here and saying yes to this crazy endeavor with me, and being a part of this, and just truly being an amazing friend to me and our families coming together. So thank you.
You're welcome. Likewise, friend.
Well, follow along, guys, and make sure you keep notifications on. Like I said, we will be on weekly on Wednesdays, and be on the lookout for more topics from us, from everything military life, good, bad, and ugly. We're shedding light on some fun. So follow along and fill us in. How are you guys? Where are you at? Where are you from? And we'll talk soon.